For another edition of The Flex. The absolute best fantasy football podcast in existence.
So I'll say this, not to say that I disagree, but
I disagree.
Oh my God.
Presented by Broadway Sports.
all right, Flexers ready?
Welcome, everyone, into another episode of The Flex. This is the most accurate Week 13 fantasy football preview show you will find anywhere that is hosted by two guys, one in an orange shirt and one in a black t-shirt. We have a great show on deck for you guys tonight. It might be a faster one than usual because just the two of us. Unfortunately, Zach is tied up right now. He's got some investigation going on. He had to travel to Carolina to figure out why Cam Newton was so bad last week, but he should be back. Everything should be fine. Tonight, we got some Thanksgiving-themed topics. We're going to run through them. Then we're going to get to your start and sit questions, as always. If you have any trade questions left, if your trade deadline hasn't happened yet, I know mine's not till this Friday, so could be out there. Drop all those questions into the chat, and we'll answer them in 15 to 20 minutes or so after we run through all these topics. But you have to do that on YouTube or Facebook because Twitter is still not letting us. Twitter is the worst. But we got some topics to run through tonight. I'm joined by Mr. Robert Greenlaw, the law himself. How you doing, Bob?
Good. I'm happy to be back. We took a week off because of the holiday, but we're back. We're ready to give you, obviously the most accurate fantasy advice you'll ever get anywhere, any podcast, any show, whatever it is. This is the most accurate.
That is factually correct. So, yes, hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving. We were away for Thanksgiving, which is why I know episode last week, but we are going to go back to our Thanksgiving-themed topics anyway, because why not? That would be fun, right? So we have tonight for you our biggest turkeys, which is something we were wrong about, players that we're thankful for, players that we're taking a nap on, aka we don't like them very much, and finally, the Cranberry Award, which we will each give to a player that we don't like very much, but we feel forced to start them anyway, and then answering your questions. Before we dive in, though, I want to remind everyone to check out BroadwaySportsMedia.com and especially to check out shop.BroadwaySportsMedia.com. Use code FLEX15 for 15% off any purchase from the Broadway shop. Shop.BroadwaySportsMedia.com. Check that out. All right, let's get into our first topic, which is turkey. Who was your biggest turkey, Mr. Greenlaw?
I've been pretty outspokenly against Jalen Hurts just because I don't think he's a very good quarterback. And while I might be right that he's not a good real-life quarterback, he's been a very good fantasy quarterback. He's quarterback 2 on the year. I think he drops a little bit lower when you go points per game, but as straight-up fantasy quarterback total points, quarterback 2, which is wild. He had a real stinker on Sunday. I think he scored like 8 points. But other than that, he has been consistently in the top 10 quarterbacks week by week. He's, like I said, he's not a very good passer. He hovers around like that 50% completion percentage. But what he lacks in passing ability, he makes up on the ground. He has almost 700 yards rushing this year. He's scored on the ground. They use him everywhere. They're using him more on the ground now than they have. It's hard to argue with the results. I mean, it's not a guy I wanted to take in any of my drafts, but I did in one of them because the other 3 of you were so high on him, and he's been my quarterback 1. So, I mean, I don't know what else to say besides I was completely wrong on him as a fantasy quarterback. I didn't think he was dynamic rusher to carry the lack of a passing game, but it's worked.
And they get the Jets this week, so
Yeah.
it should be just like, I mean, the Jets have a historically bad run defense right now, so they should be running all over them. They might not have to pass a lot again, but who cares? Like you said, Jalen Hurts doesn't need to pass. So, yeah. That's a good call there. I'm going to go with, I have like a mini one. My mini one is Jonathan Taylor because preseason I was not very in on Jonathan Taylor and he has been amazing. But I feel like I don't get to be wrong about that because a few weeks ago I was all in on Jonathan Taylor. And if you had listened to me then and like traded your whole team for him, you'd probably be in a great position right now. So I feel like I was actually right about that. So my actual biggest turkey is the wide receiver position as a whole this year. I kind of missed. I was so high on Stephon Diggs. I was really high on A.J. Brown. I thought the Titans passing offense with Julio Jones added would open up A.J. to be a target machine. Obviously, the injuries have hurt him, but the whole position is kind of a mess. I mean, just looking at the guys who were drafted, like the top 5 guys, according to average ADP, Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill are obviously the 1 and 2, and they've been very good. But DeAndre Hopkins has missed a lot of weeks with injuries, hasn't been that targeted either. Calvin Ridley stepped away from football to focus on mental health. Who could have seen that coming? You wish the best for him, but it doesn't help your fantasy team at all. DK Metcalf, Stephon Diggs, like he's still wide receiver 6, but he just hasn't been the guy that I wanted him to be. Like I took him in the first round in one league. I thought this is wide receiver 1 status. Josh Allen loves to just feed him, and Allen spread it around a lot more this year, and Stephon Diggs hasn't found the end zone so much. So I don't know. I just feel like I kind of whiffed a little bit. I did get Cooper Kupp in one league, but 1 out of 6. So I wasn't really that in on Cooper Kupp. And I feel like Kupp, Samuel, like there were incredible values. Justin Jefferson is like a 2nd round guy or even 3rd round guy. Like there were great values to be had, and I missed on all of them.
I did too. I have a couple of the guys you mentioned in one of my leagues. One of my leagues, I thought I had the most stacked team imaginable, and my wide receivers were Calvin Ridley, A.J. Brown, and Terry McLaurin. And I thought, every week those are going to be at minimum in PPR 15 points a game guys. And for the most part, Terry's been up and down, but for the most part, they've been complete disappointments. And so needless to say that team is not going very well. But I think you're right. As a whole, the whole wide receiver position is kind of looking like the running backs position has the past couple of years, where all these guys that are drafted high, like half of them miss. It felt like in the past wide receivers were a much safer pick because they didn't have as many injuries and that kind of thing going on with them. But this year it has been carnage for that position. So Stephon Diggs, I do have hope for him. He's turned it on a little bit the last couple of weeks, but
yeah,
like you said, not the consistent guy the whole year that you would have wanted.
And even guys like that I was high on, like you mentioned McLaurin, he's wide receiver 18 right now. CeeDee Lamb, I was really high on. He's wide receiver 19 right now. It's just like it hasn't materialized for a lot of these players the way that we expected. And maybe it's because we're drafting a lot more receivers higher than we had been. Maybe it's because all these teams have like viable wide receiver 2s who are like as good as their wide receiver 1 or better in some games, depending on the matchups and things like that. So you don't have like major target hogs like you used to have. So I think that could be a trend going forward, and might need to focus back on drafting running backs really high and wait on receivers. Let's move on though to our next topic, which is a player that we are thankful for. And I'll go back to you to start us off.
Yeah. So this guy I wasn't really thankful for. He's kind of sitting on my bench in my league of record, but turn of events this weekend, Alexander Mattison is now in the starting role due to Dalvin Cook's injury. I picked him up, I think, a month ago because he was on the waiver wire. Someone dropped him. I was like, that shouldn't be a guy sitting out there. It's the waiver wire is really, really thin. So I thought, what the heck? I'll take a flyer on him. Worst comes to worst, he just sits there. So I had planned on dealing him actually to the owner of Dalvin Cook a couple of weeks ago, but I decided just to hold on to him because my running backs are a little thin as it is. So now it's going to pay off in a huge way. He should be a running back 1 for every week that Dalvin Cook is out. He's had 4 career starts, and in 3 of them, he's been running back 7 or higher. He gets the full volume of the workload from Dalvin Cook. There's no drop off in performance, it seems, either. So I would plug him into any lineup you have. He's very startable in all formats as a running back 1, and you likely don't have him as your running back 1 unless you handcuffed Dalvin to him. So if you're like me and you have him and you didn't have Dalvin, it's a bonus player. So he and hopefully Zeke's healthy enough to play tomorrow. They'll be my anchors at running back.
There you go. Yeah, Madison has league-winning potential because you don't have to pay anything for him if you were able to scoop him up like you were able to. And like you said, I mean, he's getting the volume of whatever Dalvin Cook was going to get. Like, they just give it all to Madison.
Mm-hmm.
Talent drop off. I mean, Dalvin Cook's a really good running back, but Madison's pretty good. I don't know that there's a lot of drop off there. So, yeah, if I had Madison, I would be thankful for him as well. A player I'm thankful for is Leonard Fournette, Lombardi Lenny. This guy is going to carry my team to a fantasy championship. 4 touchdowns last week. I call him Fournette. Get it? Like Philippe Forsberg from our Nashville.
I got it.
Anyway, I traded for Fournette a few weeks ago. We talked about it on this show. Zach said, "Don't do it, you crazy." You said, "Do it, bro." What are you talking about? I acquired AJ Brown, Leonard Fournette, and Aaron Rodgers, and I traded away Najee Harris and Josh Allen. That's a pretty good deal from my end. Najee Harris obviously just had a bad week. Josh Allen's been up and down. He was QB1 last week, so that was pretty good. But Aaron Rodgers was QB2, so it's like not that big of a drop off there. Got rid of Najee, got Fournette. I added AJ. Like, sure, AJ's been trash since I got him fantasy-wise, but he could be back for the fantasy playoffs or championships, so that'd be great. Fournette obviously had the 4 touchdowns last week that I'm really thankful for, but I'm also especially thankful as I look ahead at the schedule to come, because in week 17, which is now the fantasy championship, Fournette plays the Jets. Jets have the worst run defense we already mentioned. Historically bad run defense. So I am eternally thankful for Leonard Fournette and anyone out there. It's going to be really hard to trade for him right now because he just coming off that 4 touchdown game. And if your trade deadline's already passed, it's going to be really, really hard to trade for him. But if it hasn't, and the manager who has Fournette is like, dang, I should sell high off this 4 touchdown game, like, go get him because he's going to win you a league.
Yeah, I mean, as an LSU guy, I love Leonard Fournette, but I'm glad that they finally realized in Tampa that the running back by committee that they had going didn't make any sense. Ronald Jones doesn't make any sense over Leonard. Bernard doesn't make any sense over Leonard. It's not like either one of those guys are adding anything that Leonard can't do on his own. The only thing I wish that they would do is add his brother, Leonard Fournette, so they could have Leonard and Leonard on the same team. I'm not making that up, by the way, either. That's literally his brother's name, Leonard.
That would be probably a first to have 2 guys named Leonard and Leonard on the same team.
Yeah, and then pick up Leonard and trade him to someone because they're just going to see L Fournette and they're going to be like, yeah, I'll trade for that guy.
Exactly. That's a really good call there. So they have to do that. Yeah, all right. Ronald Jones did score a touchdown last week, by the way, which, like, I know, like, Leonard Fournette had
it was like a pity touchdown, I'm sure. Here,
it was a 1-yard run.
Leonard 4.
But give him 5. Like, come on. All right. Who are you taking a nap on these days?
It's actually a pretty decent player, but it's Kyler Murray. He's burned me pretty bad this year in a 2 QB league. So I have him, Josh Allen, and because of the amount of teams, there's just not that many backups to go around, or at least replacements on the waiver wire. And so, I think it's a 12-team league. So you got like 6 guys on the waiver wire approximately that you could pool from. Colt McCoy did okay, but he's not Kyler Murray. And last year, 4 of the 5 weeks leading up to or in the playoffs, Kyler Murray was sub 20 points per game in those weeks, which is not what you want from someone, a quarterback 1. And then he was drafted as a quarterback or overall player 40 this year. And he's missed 3 weeks, and he's had another 3 weeks where he's been under 20 points. So not someone that you wanted to have spent a 3rd or 4th rounder on when he's producing like that. His points per game are pretty solid, but the overall production is just not there. And he's running less than he did last year. They're trying to keep him healthier, which obviously hasn't been the case since he's missed 3 games. But they're trying to keep him healthier, and they're running the ball with him less. And a lot of his value from last year came from him running the football. So if that's not there, it's all in his arm, and he's really only had 2 weeks where he's been amazing, and that was the first 2 weeks of the season. So he's been pretty disappointing, and he's definitely someone, not even just this year, but like going forward, because of some of the health issues. Like last year, the deterioration in production came from a shoulder injury. So I just wonder if he can hold up through an entire season, year to year. And so he'll definitely be someone I bump down next year when I'm drafting.
Yeah, and the fact that he's already missed 3 games with injury makes you think that like he's not going to run at all when he does come back.
Right.
So even if you're holding out hope that you can use him in the playoffs, like you may be wanting to look for alternative options. Whoever you've been playing the last 3 weeks. We have a couple questions here from Daniel Gooden. I just want to acknowledge that they are there. We will get to those in just a second. We have one more topic to cover after I give my nap player, and then we'll get to those questions. If we don't get any more, it's going to be a really short show. Hopefully we get some more people in here to drop some questions live. Everyone listening to this right now, you missed the live show and you didn't get your questions in. So next week, join us live. All right. This is what happens when Twitter removes the ability to interact with us. It's just our questions dry up.
That's actually what Zach's doing. I didn't want to like completely blow his cover, but he is going down to the Twitter headquarters right now and, picketing outside and demanding that they turn on comments for Restream.
That's right. And all streaming, actually. It's not just
all streaming. I'm sorry. Yeah. All streams matter.
And yeah, because that's where they're in Carolina as well. So he's doing a double duty trip there. All right. The player I'm taking a nap on these days is DK Metcalf. I loved DK Metcalf. I loved him as a prospect. I loved him as a fantasy type of player. He was my wide receiver 1 in that year's draft class over AJ Brown. I no longer hold that opinion, but I have him on a bunch of fantasy teams, and he's been really frustrating. And I'm at the point where I'm ready to just bench him until he has a good game again. And it's really hard to do because his ceiling is tremendous. He could catch a 70-yard touchdown on any given play. But the way the Seahawks offense is operating right now is just like, it's so, you can't even watch it. And when they do hit a big play, it feels like it's only going to Tyler Lockett or Freddie Swain. Like, where's DK? It's really obnoxious. Over the last 3 weeks, DK Metcalf is the wide receiver 73. A couple of random names who have outscored him over the last 3 weeks. Lil Jordan Humphrey of the New Orleans Saints. Hook 'em horns. Ashton Doolin up in Indianapolis has outscored him. DK Metcalf has scored 5 fantasy points per game since week 10. That's PPR. 5 points per game. That's tied for 81st among wide receivers in a points per game metric. So I'm just ready to bench him because that ceiling is there, but also the floor. He has not been even a top 50 wide receiver in any of the last 3 games. So I'm out on DK Metcalf. This is not a sleeper. This is a sleep. I'm asleep. I'm sleeping on him, taking a nap, had too much turkey, and DK Metcalf put me right to sleep, and I'm done with it. No more DK Metcalf. Even when he has a good game, I'm just going to think that was a spike game, and the next week he's going to have 1 catch for 15 yards or something. Like, where do you even go with DK these days?
That's very true. So you're telling me Nick Westbrook-Akine has probably outscored him in the past couple weeks, because he had, a 100-yard game 2 weeks ago. So
20,
and he had
25 and a touch.
And he had 4 points last week. So yeah, he definitely is outscored DK Metcalf. So really,
DK has 15 fantasy points in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Total.
So, yeah, that's
Akine
not what you drafted him for.
One game, his 100-yard game. I'm sure he had over 15 fantasy points, PPR.
And it's really tough to take him seriously when he has that pacifier as a mouthpiece too. So when he's putting up these horrible fantasy point numbers, you look at him and you're like, seriously, dude, you're going to walk around like a baby, like a giant baby at this point.
And that's why he's napping, because he's got a pacifier.
Yeah, that's why he's asleep.
All right, we got one topic left. We got another question in from Ghost Viking. Thank you, Ghost Viking. Hoping for maybe a few more, but if not, it'll be a short episode. The Cranberry Award for you is?
So Cranberry Award, like we talked about before the show, is a guy that we don't like, but we're going to have to play him anyway. And this guy might be my least favorite player in the NFL It is Taysom Hill. I cannot stand the guy. He is one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen in my life. I don't understand the Saints' fascination with him, paying him millions upon millions of dollars to do nothing. I mean, they just gave him what, 95 million if he's going to be the quarterback one for them going forward.
Yeah.
And he wasn't announced the starter until this week. Like, he couldn't beat out Trevor Siemian over the past 3 or 4 weeks.
Apparently, he's got some plantar fasciitis.
Yeah, okay. He couldn't beat out Jameis to start the year either. Like, this guy is making so much money to be so mediocre. I want his job. Like, people always talk about Chase Daniel being the guy that, secured the bag despite not doing anything. No, it's Taysom Hill. He comes in and he runs like 2 plays and he's getting paid like $100 million. It's a great gig if you can get it. So that's what I would aspire to be if I was, coaching kids. Just be a guy who does a bunch of things very average and talk to Sean Payton. He might pay you a lot of money. But anyway,
yeah,
go ahead.
I wonder what Taysom Hill knows about Sean Payton that's resulted in all this.
That's a great, probably like, I don't know, some sort of horrible scandal that's going to happen. Just like, what was the thing with Greg Williams? What was that? Bountygate. Yeah, it's Bountygate 2.0. So, but anyway, he's a terrible quarterback, but he does have some fantasy appeal. He's going to be, because he does everything for them. He runs the ball. He'll catch a couple passes. He'll throw the ball. So he can do everything for them. He might not do it well, but he's going to have so much volume just being the quarterback and having so many rushing attempts, especially near the goal line. Like, he is their goal line back when he's in. So I do think he's going to have a lot of opportunity when he's playing. And I think he is probably a quarterback one. I know I picked him up off of waivers this week, and he will be my quarterback one until he gets benched.
I know Zach agrees with that as well. He's been struggling with the QB position there. He'll probably be the only starting quarterback to catch a pass this week.
Probably. So 1 point for him. Good job, Taysom.
Yeah. All right. The player that I am awarding the Cranberry Award to, someone that I do not like very much anymore, but I feel forced to start this week, is actually Antonio Gibson. I know we love Antonio Gibson, but this guy's been the most frustrating fantasy asset of any player in the league, I think, this year. And it's not all his fault. He has some like injury stuff. He's like kind of got a weak-ish body that breaks down every single year, and he can't like carry all the carries. Or I guess he can carry all the carries, but he can't catch any passes. He doesn't play on third down despite being a former wide receiver. J.D. McKissic got hurt. We don't really know how bad it is yet. You hate to see a player go down, but
I don't hate to see it, honestly.
Somebody's got to pick
JD.
up the usage. And speaking of usage, over the last 3 weeks, do you know who leads the NFL in carries?
I bet it's Antonio Gibson.
Antonio Gibson. And Washington's doing this thing on offense now where they just like run these 8-minute drives where they just like hand the ball off at almost every play and impose their will. And they've been successful doing it against some good teams. So I think they're going to continue doing that. And now that there's no J.D. McKissic in the picture, you have to think, even if they don't give every third down snap to Antonio Gibson, he's at least going to play more and at least have the chance to catch more passes that are meaningful in the offense and not just like a 1-yard screen that he gets tackled on immediately or whatever. So definitely feel like you have to start Antonio Gibson. I have found alternatives all season long because I've just been so frustrated with him. So I've been able to like get by benching Gibson. Not this week. This week, you got to start him. So put the cranberry on the turkey. I like cranberry sauce. I don't get this award. Zach named it.
Wait, you put the cranberry sauce on the turkey?
I don't know how everyone else does their Thanksgiving, but I put all the stuff on my plate. It's very partitioned: mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, turkey, green beans, cranberry sauce, whatever the hell else. And then as soon as I get to my seat, I mix it all up.
Yeah.
Gravy on top of everything.
All right. The podcast has been canceled. Holy cow. You are a maniac.
It tastes amazing. It's like a Thanksgiving pie. Mashed potatoes, gravy, green beans, sweet potatoes, cranberry sauce. It's so good. Gravy.
Wow. That is horrific. I hope you clip this because this video will get 1 million views just from that. That is appalling.
Follow me for more food takes at Titan's Food Room.
Yeah, don't follow that account. In fact, just troll it. Just comment on the tweets. Don't actually follow it. Just yeah, Stoney, you missed a lot. You've missed a whole lot here. JG's next Thanksgiving is just going to be throwing all the food in a blender and serving smoothies to everybody.
You're welcome over next year for Thanksgiving if you want to try them.
I'll pass. Thank you. Wow.
Should we answer some questions here?
Yeah, let's
start with
We'll
Stoney.
now be taking food questions too.
Yes, any food questions. Stoney's in for Thanksgiving at my place. Stoney, as we just covered, you missed a lot, but you also missed all of our fantasy advice, and you missed where Zach is. So this stream will be wrapped up in 5 to 10 minutes. As soon as that's the case, you can start the YouTube video over and do your thing. But you got here in time for the questions, so you didn't miss out on too much. Let's start, actually, for real, with this question from Ghost Viking. I'm going in reverse order, I guess, which is fine. So you got one wide receiver spot left. Could be PPR, could be not PPR. It might not matter. We did find out that Amari Cooper is expected to play. That's not 100% sure, but they did say he's expected to play. T. Higgins, CD Lamb, or Brandon Ayuk. No Deebo Samuel probably this week. Where are you going here?
I mean, right off the PPR. So right off the bat, I'm thinking T. Higgins. CD, do we know, is he back from concussion or whatever it was that he had?
I'm not 100% sure, but I haven't seen that he's not playing, so I think so.
So the reason I lean T. Higgins is because since he's been back, he's led the Bengals in targets over the past couple of weeks, and he has been, they're throwing the ball deep, and a lot of attention has been given to Jamar Chase, and rightfully so, and defenses are trying to stop him, and it's opened things up a little bit for T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow isn't afraid to take advantage of the matchups he's getting. So a part of me leans T. Higgins. Brandon Ayuk, I think it now that I'm thinking about it, might actually be the play here. He was awesome without Deebo last year, and Deebo's going to be out for a couple weeks. Same quarterback. It's not like anything's changed there. He's kind of been back as far as playing, the snaps and stuff he's getting. He's kind of back. It's definitely not what we saw at the beginning of the year. So I'm changing my mind from Higgins. I think it's got to be Ayuk. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity there.
There you go. I'm glad you said that, because that was actually going to be my answer to begin with, was Ayuk, for basically all the reasons that you just said. So I don't really need to rehash them. But all of these are decent options over the last 4 weeks.
I'm wondering who you're starting as your other wide receivers, because these guys, that could fill out a 1, 2, 3 in most teams.
Really. And Ayuk over the last 4 weeks, this is largely because Deebo has become like a half running back type of player. But over the last 4 weeks, Ayuk leads San Francisco in targets, receptions, and receiving yards. So I say go with him. All right, let's move on to Ghost Vikings' other question. Are you guys out on the Vikings wide receivers since the offense collapsed after Kirk got scared?
Did Kirk get scared, or just did he get confused? I mean, people confuse the left guard or right guard with the center all the time. I mean, it's something you see on a week-to-week basis.
Especially when you're in like a jumbo package and got like an extra O lineman out there or something.
Yeah. No, I'm not out on the Vikings wide receivers. I would only be out on them if someone got COVID.
Didn't Thielen catch a touchdown after that whole thing happened anyway?
I think he did. Someone did.
And Thielen's numbers wide receiver 7 right now, and Jefferson's wide receiver 5 right now. Like, I'm not out on 2 top 7 wide receivers by any means. So I don't know if this is a joke or not, but
this sounds like someone who's just very upset with Kirk Cousins as a person.
Mm-hmm. Maybe he has both Vikings wide receivers in his starting lineup, and his last wide receiver spot was the question we were just covering.
Could be.
All right, Daniel Gooden has 2 questions. Here's the first one: Shepard, Robinson, I guess Allen Robinson II, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman Jr., or DK Metcalf. Pick 2. I'm benching DK Metcalf.
Are you really?
In this group, I'm actually taking the last 3 and not benching DK Metcalf.
You have to pick 2.
Oh, only pick 2?
Yep.
I think Higgins and Pittman.
Yeah, I think that's what I was leaning to. Shepard, he was okay at the beginning of the year. I'm not taking anyone on the Giants offense. Even, Jason Garrett or no Jason Garrett. The only guy I would even consider is Stoney, but he explodes every week. Like his body explodes every week. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't pick anyone on the Giants offense. Robinson has been horrible this year.
Yep.
One of the worst. I mean, he could have been what I was wrong about, or my guy that I'm sleeping on, because he has been absolutely awful.
Agreed.
Maybe the worst pick in fantasy this year, because you picked him as a, very high end wide receiver 2. Yeah.
Wide receiver
So
11,
if you draft
31 overall, I got it right over here.
horrible. That maybe the worst pick in fantasy football this year, and I have him in a team, and what a disappointment. Like I've already talked about Higgins. I think that's one, and yeah, I would take Pittman over Metcalf just because you haven't seen it yet from Seattle. They are a complete mess.
Yeah. And Shepard, like we might see Mike Glennon on Sunday. And if that's the case, then you're definitely not playing Shepard. And finally, the last question, ready for the Drake train to take off this week? Is that Kenyon Drake?
Maybe it's Drake the artist.
Who do the Raiders play? Cowboy. No, they just played the Cowboys. Do the Raiders play this week? Silence on a podcast.
Yeah, let's look this up real quick.
Where
the Raiders play Washington. So, I mean, I might be ready for the Drake train to take off. I'm just not sure it is actually going to take off.
I feel like the Drake train is going to just like move along at a nice slow pace and get to its destination about
on time.
Where you'd
expect. No sooner, no later, just right on time. It'll be exactly like a 10 points per game train for you.
Yes. Well, unless we get another question in the next 10 seconds, I think that'll wrap up this show. We did a pretty good job. 30 minutes. That's 10 minutes longer than I expected this to be.
Look at that. Exceeding expectations. That's what we do on the show.
Hopefully we will be back next week. I won't make any promises because you never know with us. Hopefully we'll be back next week. In the meantime, make sure you're checking out shop.broadwaysportsmedia.com for 15% off with code FLEX15. That's us. We're the Flex. 15 for 15% off. If you can't put that together, then you know what? That's going to do it for us here tonight. Follow us on Twitter and stuff. All right. Peace out, everyone.